Today's not a federal offense. I have to find out what the limits of my garage are. Those are not. Yeah.
Ted Fidel? That wall looks good down.
Looks good, right? Looks great. Yeah, and we got, I know, I saw on Facebook, some conversation about how much it was, and we got $25,000 from the state for electric car. It's good.
That's an act in stone walls.
That's hilarious.
I don't want to, that's all I wanted to build better.
You got children.
A lot of red meat. So I love. Is this just a charger for the Surface?
I bet.
I'm good. I like that. Good for a man.
Thank you. I'm an old Mason hands.
You know,
Mark is on.
Old Mason hands.
okay.
The carrots.
Yep.
That's good.
Tired of my working.
Carolyn brought over.
Nice, I was 22.
Not like that. Yep. Yeah, my grandfather was a Mason. So when I came into it, it taught me a few things, but that was a long time ago now.
How about us? Anything else?
Yep. Fun times.
I love chickens, but
What are you, bad leg?
Yeah, I was hiking up in Baxter and took a tumble. It's like, yep, beautiful place. Took a tumble, sprained the knee with 6 inches, but nothing big.
How did he go?
Not yet. So I don't think I'll need it. So it's just a few
If you
stitches.
do, yell up and warn me, they're gonna say she.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hopeful to avoid it.
You should get a motor and open the door.
Hey, how you doing? Taking a pile of.
I know, we're looking into that.
How are you?
I give them store bought.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going?
All right. How are you?
Garage question.
Garage. Okay.
Video. And have a garage attached to your house.
And I volunteer.
I have it on video. Does it have to be slow it down?
Next week is the
It's a
best week in town.
It's like frame.
I
understand the front end and all that. I'm only concerned about
They're
that.
gonna walk them in there and use.
So if the garage is attached to your house,
So have
you have to meet principal setbacks. If it's within 10 feet, you're like, or attached, you have to make principal side setbacks.
Yeah, we'll use that.
what do you call it?
Or 10 depending on the
But that's from your property line?
the property line, yes.
So.
Therefore, you will have.
Right there at the
Higgins, right in that property.
Well, I don't know. It's 10 feet off.
The bell.
Yes.
Happened to Bell, not in Boston.
It's not good for.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. We've got a room packed in town hall. I'll stop sharing so we can see everybody in the room. And we got a few members on Zoom. Jackie, if you can call the select board to order, that'd be great.
Sure, calling the select board to order. Jackie here.
Mark here.
Chris here.
I believe Karen Herrick is on the line too. But I know she's on the phone. We had some issues yesterday with folks wanting to speak while on Zoom. But as you all know, in the world that we are in today, we are tightening down security to prevent Zoom bombing. So if you want to speak, please raise your hand using the raise hand function, or type in the chat. Either option is okay. So great, we'll get started. We've got a presentation that we want to share. Can you all see my presentation on Zoom? No.
No.
How is that now? All right, now we're good.
Yep.
There you go. It's another debate in the room. Thank you everyone for joining. I want to thank everyone that's been involved, but in particular, I want to thank Mr. Stephen Cool. There was an article on the Daily Times Chronicle calling Mr. School the resident expert in New England for dog parks. So I'm thankful that he's been able to spearhead this process, and we spent a few hours on this presentation. So we'll be doing this presentation in as a tag team, but I do think that the goal is to get input from the residents. So we'll try not to spend too much time on the presentation. For me, please ask questions as we go along. We try to make it as informative as we can, but the goal again is to get public discussion going on this topic of a dog park. So we'll start with just a high level agenda. Like I said, the most important thing is at the end, which is your thoughts and to join this community discussion. Certainly, please join, ask questions as we go along, whether it's in person or on Zoom. We'll try to answer the first question of why do we need a dog park in Reading. We'll then try to share what are the benefits of a dog park as we see it. We'll go a little bit into what makes a great dog park. I'll share some local examples of surrounding communities that have dog parks. Part of the reason why we're having this expedited process is because there is a grant out there. It's from the Stoughton Foundation, and it provides specifically money for the design and construction of a dog park. And then we'll dive into some possible locations that we've looked at in a dog park. But certainly that is the meat and potatoes of the discussion. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cool.
Thank you, Fidel. My name is Stephen Cool, and Fidel exaggerated a little bit. The newspaper actually called me possibly the foremost unofficial expert on dog parks in the region, but he didn't say what size region he had in mind or the criteria and comparisons for possibly. But dog parks as such have been around now for over 40 years. And if you look at the numbers on the screen, Massachusetts appears to have over 10% of the dog parks nationally. They're usually about 20,000 square feet, which is about what Wilmington Dog Park is in its two sections. And it usually costs about $300,000 to $350,000 in order to construct one, according to the funding group that we hope to apply to. That would be the Stoughton Foundation, as Fidel mentioned. In Reading, we have over 10,000 households. Could we go to the next one? Yeah, we have just over 10,000 households, and we have over 3,300 at least dogs that are known and registered, and known unregistered dogs as well as registered dogs here in Reading. And this is according to our town clerk, Laura Jim. So we have quite a few families with at least one dog, and one family has 5 dogs. So that's quite a level of interest. The benefits to a dog park are really to both dogs and families, humans. It's a place for them to play safely. It's a good, healthy, safe activity for families. Many times, I, for one, am walking my dog or dogs in the street, and that's not the safest thing to do. It's also a social opportunity for those of us with dogs, and many people who come to a dog park for the first time, they've just gotten a puppy or a young dog, and they don't know much about caring for them, and there's lots of discussion and lots of helpful discussion about that. And I think that having a dog park in town will raise property values. So I think these are a number of many benefits. So I'll turn it back to Fidel.
Thank you. So we, over the next few slides, I'll share a few examples of dog parks in our area. I wanted to basically provide kind of a starting point of the design elements for a dog park. So they vary in size, but the parks that we have honed in are very similar in size. They vary in amenities, right? In terms of what's available. Obviously, they range from very advanced to in Wakefield, it's not as advanced. I'll say as an example. But a few things stand out, and they are on the slide. Obviously, we want double gated entry in any dog park to prevent it acts like an airlock, right? To prevent any dogs from entering or exiting by mistake. We want it's recommended to have separate areas for small dogs, big dogs, dogs that are active, dogs that are more passive, and obviously the more sections that we have, the better it is for everyone. As Mr. School said, these can be an area for socialization, both for people and dogs. So in the examples that I'll be showing you shortly, there are some shade areas for people. There are some benches, some tables, possibly, among many things. So the first example that I'll show you is Burlington. So Burlington is just under half an acre, and as you can see in the picture, it's broken up into two different areas, and better seen in this picture here. It's got an area for passive dogs. This is like I think what we commonly refer to as small dogs. And then it's got an active dog area, which is bigger. And the idea is that this is the area where dogs can run around. And as you can see in this park in particular, there are different areas with different amenities, if you will. There's some areas for dogs to climb. There's benches and things like that. Ms. Cool, anything in Burlington that stands out that you want to share?
Burlington is kind of interesting in that they put in AstroTurf on top of cushioning, on top of a concrete platform. That's where it says play mounds there. So that's kind of unusual. Their surface is crushed stone, which is common, although perhaps not always best for dogs' feet. So there are a number of different surfaces that are used. This diagram, you have to kind of reverse it for the way Burlington is today with the smaller passive dog area.
Whereabouts in Burlington is that?
I'm sorry?
Whereabouts in Burlington?
Well, if you go down Cambridge Street and you get to that rather large intersection, it's off to the right on Mill Street, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. We go there pretty often. They have a water source, water station as we're calling it, the double entry. So it's a reasonable dog park. That one and Wilmington dog parks are pretty good examples of sort of the average or typical one.
Yeah, I looked up the address and it's at 84 Mill Street in Burlington.
How old is it?
How old is the park? I don't think it's that old.
Don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Has it been there a long time or it's relatively new?
It was there before the shutdown, before the COVID shutdown.
Okay, so 5 or 6 years at least.
Yeah, well, what was that, 2019, 20, thereabouts, because we were taking our dog to the town forest every day, or to Wilmington Dog Park, and Wilmington closed, look, and we wanted a dog park. We found Burlington, went there 3 times, 3 days in a row, and they closed it for the shutdown. So,
There's a comment online from Eileen O'Shea that says that it's probably 5 years old.
Yeah, I see it's after 2016, because it was in the news back then. So.
The next example is from Billerica. So similar in size, right? It's about half an acre. The next slide is a drawing that in a very similar area. So the entire park, all of these parks are entirely fenced in all the way around. As you can see, there's the concept of airlocks, which is a double gated fence between the areas. And this has areas for small dogs, larger dogs. So there is a segregation of dogs depending on the type of dog.
If I could add,
please.
What Burlington has done is they have a crushed stone surface, but they also have a couple of pools for the dogs. And you can empty the pool, if it's getting a little dirty and add water to it, which is kind of unusual to have a pool where dogs can get in and splash around. So they have 2 of those. Not big.
Burlington or Billerica?
Billerica. Did I say Burlington?
Yeah.
I apologize. It is Billerica. Yes.
Yeah. What's cool about this one is that too obviously is that you see that there's a pavilion and a lot of seating options for humans also, as well as dogs. All right. Moving on to Danvers. So around the same area, so half an acre, and this is a graphical view of the Danvers dog park, and you start to see the themes here, right? So it's entirely fenced in. It's got a small dog area, a large dog area, the concept of airlocks, and you see the amenities in the pictures in terms of seating areas, water fountain. Obviously, there's in the middle picture in this slide, you see dog waste dispensers, which is something that is critical to ensure that to encourage people to pick up after their dogs. And in the bottom one in the bottom picture is basically the idea of using local terrain, right, for to make amenities for dogs. Anything else, Mr. Cool?
Not really. Danvers is kind of a simple park. They have some concrete to stand on. Some parks, it's pretty much all ground or whatever the surface is for the dogs. But they do have a concrete pad there. Otherwise, it's a fairly simple dog park.
Yeah. Any questions so far? In the room or on Zoom? Okay. So as I mentioned early on, the reason for our urgency is that there is a foundation, Stan Grant, that provides funding for design and construction of dog parks, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Cool. He has been speaking a lot with the foundation and garnering their interest in a dog park in Reading.
They've been very supportive. Every time I've emailed the gentleman who is the grant administrator, you might call him, or called him, he's gotten right back to me, very helpful. They appear eager to do something for us, which would be up to $250,000 if we can specify a location. Actually, they've tightened their regulations down to one location, but to show you what kind of great people they are, the grant administrator has said, look, I'll go to the board for you. I know what difficulty you're having because Reading has very little free land. So he said, I'll go to the board for you. You give us 2, maybe 3 locations, and I'll do what I can to make sure they approve it. So they start out with a design grant, which is used for the hire an architect to design the park. And once that is approved, then we can get up to $250,000 for up to 90% of the cost of construction. And I think it's worth noting, when Fidel was with Chelsea here in Massachusetts, he put in a dog park and received Stanton Foundation funding for that. And also there's a gentleman here in town, Mark Wetzler, who was with the Ayer government. And same thing there, he put in a dog park with their funding.
Can I just ask one more question? Is there a Zoom link?
There is.
Okay. Yeah, so I can email it to, sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll text you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question also?
Sure.
So in order to bring your dog to these different dog parks, are there like regulations, like they must be vaccinated, they must be a town dog?
Yes, ma'am.
If anybody gets hurt, who's responsible? Do the two owners like figure it out between them, or is the town at all liable?
When you enter any of these dog parks, you'll always see a placard with maybe a dozen regulations. And as you said, the dog needs to be properly vaccinated, current vaccinations,
And
licensed.
who checks to make sure that people are complying with this information?
Well, for example, up in Gloucester, there are very active volunteers who come to the park. And I can't say, honestly, I've never seen anyone check a dog for proper ID. But people who go to the dog parks are usually, they become very familiar with the dogs that are there. And
Yep, that's,
so, it becomes kind of, a little community,
Yep.
if you will.
which is nice.
And there are rules, pick up waste. They're usually bag dispensers, as Fidel said, waste bag dispensers. And except for Wilmington, I'm going to say, there's always a trash can. But
And then who is this, what group in town would be responsible for the upkeep? Like, is this gonna all land on the DPW's plate?
they're really
No, it's a-
kind of two parts.
It's gonna be on Chuck.
Good, all right, I
So I've
vote
got a
yes.
question. Go ahead, Chuck.
I have just a follow-up question. Those rules that you're talking about are in other towns. We don't have rules here in Reading yet. Is that right? Or are you
Right.
talking
We don't
about?
have a dog
Because of
park.
the stage where we are right now, but
I think
eventually.
Susan asked one
have a
question
second
about, is the dogs that are allowed in the dog park only from Reading? And you said yes, but that's not the case.
Oh, no.
You went to Burlington, right?
Oh,
With your
absolutely.
dog. So
Every
it's
dog park
any dog.
I've been to, which is a number of them in Mass, there's never a restriction as far as, who can attend. But you did ask a number of questions. You asked about liability. It's usually use at your own risk. And, occasionally, someone has gotten a bite because they do something silly, like try to, come between a couple of dogs who are tussling. But I can only, in the past 6 or so years, I can only think of maybe 2 instances that I've heard of that.
Do you have any statistics from neighboring towns on sort of the negative experiences or events that have occurred? So I'm Jeff, this is Tim. We're both on the town forest committee, so we have a little bit of context and things to bring forward with this. And part of the reason we're here, well, speaking for myself and not Tim, on the board.
I didn't know you were gonna be here.
I think we're good. You wouldn't have come, there's incidents that happen there, and it's complicated. It's a lot more complicated than I think a lot of people think it is on the surface, and it's been something we've been talking about for years. And I can tell you my read of the situation is that Reading currently doesn't have a very good mechanism for handling negative dog events, right? And I think this might increase the opportunity for that to happen. The animal control officer moving to the public health department, the police department essentially stepping away from managing dog incidents in the town forest. I guess I would just be curious, because it's not gonna happen, right? And then how frequent do these types of things occur in dog parks? So what would be the plan for that?
Well, I can tell you from experience, because for the last I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I or my wife have taken our dog now 2 dogs, to a dog park probably 4 to 5 times a week. Different dog parks, Gloucester, Wilmington, Wakefield, and so on. And as I mentioned, I've only really seen maybe two instances where someone was injured. My first
Someone
rule,
or a dog? Was the
from a
human?
dog.
Okay, the dog was injured, not the person was injured.
No, the person was injured. Yes.
Okay.
Someone at Wilmington Dog Park made the silly move of trying to get it between 2 dogs when they were going at each other, which is rare. And, we've been to dog parks hundreds of times now. And we haven't seen the problem. And I'm sorry, going back to your question, what was it?
Is there any data
Oh, Dave,
on,
no.
police calls or lawsuits or human injuries or dog injuries that could be used as a bellwether? And then, the number's not gonna be 0, right? Say it's very low still.
Right.
What's the plan for who manages those, who responds, who deals with it? I think Susan makes a very good point about who's liable if it's not property. I just think that it should be thought about holistically like that.
Well, the issue, obviously the issue in town forests, a big one has been multiple dogs brought in by professional dog walkers. And there have been cases there where, in a couple of cases I've seen people have a little trouble with the dog. For some reason, you don't see that at dog parks. They're off leash, they're running around able to play with each other. And there are so few times I've been concerned.
If there are dog parks all over the place, what do we need? Playing devil's advocate perhaps, but what do we need a dog park in Reading for with all the other amenities we have?
That's an excellent question.
And all the acreage we have, 25, 26 miles of trails. There are a myriad of places to walk your dog safely. You don't have to walk around a neighborhood anymore. And the town forest is clearly the most active. We do provide the bags and all the rest of it, so you get the issue of kids, small kids going into the dog park. I don't know, I've talked to a whole bunch of people, most people I know that own dogs and that are protective of their dogs, whatever, would never go to a dog park. They don't want to be exposed to all the
You're bringing
issues.
up a number of points.
Yeah, can I
bring it up?
Small kids are prohibited from most dog parks. You've got to be 10 years old or something to be legal in the dog park.
This is all enforcement, these are all enforcement challenges.
Sorry?
These are all enforcement challenges.
Well, they are.
And it's gonna be on a volunteer basis.
So can I just kind of respond to that? So I've been in Reading for 25 years. First 23, we were dogless. So I've kind of come to this really recently. My dog is 9 pounds. I went to the town forest twice. I will never take my dog to the town forest.
But we're working on it, right?
Listen, great. I'm glad you are. A Great Dane just almost bit my dog's head off, right? But I've gone to a lot of the dog parks and I feel safer there because it's contained. Yes, the dogs are off leash, but the owners are sitting right there. If there's any kind of things between dogs, it's easy to do. I won't bring my dog to the dog park. To the town
Do you use
forest.
the trails?
Um,
Fairmount, et cetera.
we haven't.
I think that's kind of my point. I just wanted to say, my personal opinion, this conversation has absolutely nothing to do with the town forest dog conversation. I'm just bringing forward the conversation that there are a lot of dog-related regulatory issues in this town, and you're going to experience them here too.
And there's no reason why those can't be solved. Whether that's a bylaw committee, select board, town meeting, you'll make the regulations when you decide to have a dog park. Just like in the town forest, never had to really deal with dog things until it became a problem. And you guys dealt with it or attempting to deal with it.
To a great extent, the really important rules are I might say self-enforced, because the people who go to the dog parks, they will correct someone if they brought in a small child, or if someone comes in with a dog with a spiked collar on, or if a dog is aggressive, people have been asked to not come back with their dog. So.
I have, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah,
enforcement, we, on the cemetery board, as you know, we do not allow dogs in the cemetery. It's almost impossible to catch up with anybody. Yes, we do, we have a dog officer, the guys do report it, but it's for naught, quite frankly. And I have to restrain my tongue once in a while when I see people walking the dogs. I don't tell them, get the hell out, but I remind them nicely, there's not supposed to be dogs in the cemetery. So they just keep on walking.
And the question was raised, why do we need one? Because we have, Wilmington, Billerica, we have the town forest, but proximity is a big issue. If we have a dog park locally, then people who might not otherwise have the time or the transportation to get to a dog park or the town forest somewhere else could have a resource here. And if we have one that is within reasonably short distance and safe walking distance, then you can have young people and perhaps the elderly, who aren't driving and are a little concerned about their safety, and they have the benefit of the dog park.
We received a request on the chat, just so identify yourself before speaking. You're gonna hopefully be more info about that. Yes, sir.
Thanks for that.
Chris.
I guess, was it answered what the liability is on the town? Is the town liable if something happens in a dog park? Is it a yes or no?
I'm not a lawyer. I won't pretend to be a lawyer, and as you know, things are very case specific. So it's not that it's not yes or no, right? It depends, right, on the issue, on the situation, right? It is not yes or no. In my opinion, it is no different than a playground, right? Where it's a town asset that we will do our best to maintain, and we will do our best to address issues as they come up, so we are not negligent, right? We won't have broken structures, broken fences, right? That purposely harm people, right? So where I think that and this is not a dog park is no different than a playground, in my opinion. Where the town will become liable is if we act negligent, right? So that there's an issue that we are informed of and we choose not to act on it.
So if a gate's broken for a month and a dog gets hit by a car, it's a gray area there, kind of scenario.
Yeah.
In Chelsea, did you ever experience getting sued or anything from the dog park that you had while you were there?
Not at the time that I was there.
If we reach the point of establishing a committee, I think it might be worthwhile for someone to start getting in touch with police departments in various cities and towns around here and ask some of these important questions. Yes, ma'am.
Gloria Wren Parker. I have a question about, have there been estimates made about how much it would cost to the town to maintain the dog park once it's operational, if it happens?
Not yet. No, we don't have any estimates yet. I think it'll probably depend,
On the water, whether there's water or not, exactly.
bags, cost of bags, how often we have to clean it, right, and things like that. I mean, we do have a baseball field, we have playgrounds, we have a lot of things that we do maintain.
Right. Right, so maybe at some point there will be a range possibly to let people know what that would be, the maintenance.
That's an excellent question, and two dog parks in particular. Wilmington has just an ad hoc group of people who are always cleaning up, and because Wilmington, for some reason, will not put a trash can there at the dog park, or at least as of a year ago they hadn't. So, careless people were leaving their waste bags, but there were many of us who would, when we'd come to the dog park, take a few extra home. And in Gloucester, as I mentioned, you have a very active Friends of Gloucester Dog Park group, if that's what it's called. And there's often somebody there at the dog park answering questions, making sure people clean up if they, don't see their dog doing something. And in in Gloucester, they've had fundraisers. So the cost of maintenance, much of the maintenance is offset by contributions and fundraisers. And we can do the same thing here in town. DPW would have to do the big stuff, maintaining the surface, if rock has to be added, for example, maintaining the fencing, fixing a piece of concrete. But other than that, small things, keeping the waste bag containers full. That can be something that Friends of the Dog Park group would seem to be well suited for.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions in the room? Any other questions on Zoom?
Actually,
Yes.
So, Steve, you mentioned that.
Barry Berman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barry Berman, Longview Road. So you had mentioned that this foundation is willing to work with us.
Yes.
And is willing to look at kind of, 2 or 3 different sites. So I guess, Fidel, my question is for you. Have we identified potentially any sites where this can go? And because I think that's really going to drive the conversation.
I'll be sharing those shortly.
All right.
Sharing that shortly. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Any other questions on Zoom? Okay, we'll keep going.
So there are a number of criteria that, wait for a second. Okay, so clearly you have to have a place of suitable size. We've gone to Wakefield Dog Park, and I find it at 10,000 square feet to be pretty small, and it can be hazardous because dogs, they love to run around in circles and all. You pretty much want to stay over toward the fence so you don't get bowled over. And I always tell people my one primary rule of dog park safety is keep your knees flexed at all times. So Wilmington, 20,000 square feet, it's not a problem. Plenty of room to run around. People can, stand around and watch what the dogs are doing and not be in danger of getting bowled over. So that, that's really the first thing. But then we need it to be safe to use for owners and dogs. We need it to be safe to get there. And then, convenient to get there, or else it doesn't get used. If we put it at the back of the town forest, probably would not get much use. Again, proximity, as close as we can get to the weighted population center of Reading, which is actually about just a few blocks north of Town Hall, up 129 up Lowell Street. That's really about the weighted population center of Reading. So, we kind of have to think of proximity to that location. And then we want water. Every dog park has water, at least one water station. Parking, and then, is a dog park suitable for the location and surroundings?
Okay. So to answer the question asked by Mr. Berman, what options do we have? So one option that keeps coming up for everything, I'd say, is Simon's Way. This is an area that during the work of the Simon's Way Exploratory Committee, and there's a link on the screen that takes you to the work of the committee, and there's a lot of pros to this site. Obviously, there's a lot of acreage there. There's potentially a lot of parking, and there is potentially some overlapping with regards to the natural environment, right? So maybe some additional trails in the future. There's certainly a lot of wetlands there that could maybe be nature. It's a natural setting. The cons is I think a big one is that the envisioning of this area it is being done by the Simon's Way Exploratory Committee. The Simon's Way Exploratory Committee had a meeting last night where they talked about a few exciting topics and putting a dog park, on the top of the agenda, if you will, of this area it might not happen. Another one that I've heard about from a few members is the noise from the gun range, and is that going to be problematic for dogs? I'm not sure. And also just that the location is far away from the center of town.
And if I could, Fidel,
Chris,
yes, Chris Haley again. It says the dog park in that is 6,000 square feet when Stephen just said 10 to 20. So this seems super unrealistic.
I think the architect who did a layout wasn't familiar with dog parks, but he wanted to put one in, and he put one in.
Okay.
That's my impression. If I may, there are a couple of things. One thing really. When I met with Chuck Tyrone this week, Tyrone, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
I apologize. He suggested an area that's, as I understand it, kind of northwest of here. And it's not immediately accessible, but if we could put a wooden walkway, let's say, out to it, did you determine how many square feet that might be out there?
Not square feet, but I know one access point, the best access point for the town, working from their property and staying on their property and avoiding all the regulatory issues that have to do with conservation, would be about 200 feet. 200 feet of boardwalk is what you need, and that's what we talked about.
Yes.
We talked about how much a 100-foot costs just down the street. So it'd be sizable, but it's actually within that grant scheme that we talked about. For the construction was $250,000. The boardwalk would be under $200,000, but the land on the other side is dry. So
How much land is it again? I remember.
isn't it like 10?
Pretty big.
I don't remember either.
It's not crossing the baseball.
Past baseball, it's out to the, call it the back 40. It's way out there. But it's dry land, and can't remember how much it was. I mean, I'll say 10 acres or less, something in that range.
That's 40,000 square feet, as much as 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, well, it doesn't give you an opportunity to like develop the whole place, but you can think about, a dog park and a walking trail and some paths and whatnot. So this dog park all of a sudden turns into more of an area that would accommodate not just dog owners, but people who want to walk out into this area of Reading that's never been explored before, because now we're going to open it up. So that would probably be a better concept. And it all starts with that 200 foot. We also talked about an 8 foot wide boardwalk. Something that feels very comfortable to get out there, people going up and coming back. So yeah, there it is. I don't know what it says for
access.
I think it says 3 point.
Yeah, that was what needs to be explored. The one issue with this is emergency vehicle access.
One way in, one way out.
So
Plus dogs passing each other on a boardwalk, plus my understanding is that people hunt that property legally.
Plus it's still left of the gun range, right?
yeah, yes and yes, but there's not much availability to this area here. They hunt further up in the North Cedar Swamp, where you can go up the power lines and
So
be
far as
in
you
that
know.
area. I didn't hear that.
So far as you know, that's where they hunt.
Based on my tenure here,
Sidetrack me a little bit. Go ahead. And please,
Susan
share your
Bell.
name. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you, sorry. Now I don't remember what I was gonna ask you.
That's okay. We'll come back. Mr. Bill?
Bill Brown, there is some land up behind the Wood End Cemetery, Charles Lawn rather, be accessed from Cali Road. It's kind of an isolated spot, never developed for the cemetery because of the cost of connecting. I don't know how much land there is there, but it's
But it's not
not
something.
suitable for cemetery use, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because of access.
Gotcha.
Susan Bowe again. Is this discussion going to be funneling people that are currently walking their dogs off leash in the town forest and in conservation land into a dog park area, either now or down in the future? Or are we going to still be able to walk in the town forest? But if you're not comfortable there, here's another opportunity for you.
That's right.
Okay.
There's been no discussion about shifting people. If they want to go to the forest.
Awesome,
fine.
thank
Go to
you.
the dog park.
That's great, thank you.
What if a dog walking group, dog company, comes in with 8 dogs? Can they go into the park?
Well, we'd have to discuss it, but
Have you seen it?
inherent, I've never seen professional dog walkers with more than 1, maybe 2 dogs. Up in Gloucester, there are a few people who will bring 2 dogs in, and they're as well behaved as the other dogs. So.
As you know, we deal with 6 or 8 or 10 at times.
Certainly.
Multiple I'm Tim Kerwin, by the way. We have multiple groups with 8 to 10 dogs at times.
Yeah, I've been
Going
discussing.
all
it with
over,
Bill.
not just in the town forest, but in the trail systems as well, so they, I don't know how you would deal
Well,
with
that's
that.
been on my mind from the start because Bill Sullivan and I started discussing this last year. And so I'm well aware of the issues you all have.
I would like to say, Susan Bowe again, that I'm in the town forest all the time. And the people that are walking multiple groups of dogs are being paid to do that. They are very involved with the dogs that they're walking. On the other hand, there are people that are in there with their dogs that are on their phone, that are doing other things and are not as involved. So I don't think that it's fair to say that the dog walking groups are the ones that are to blame for some of the incidences. I just want to throw that out there.
Good point.
I'll take it. So I'll share the next option. I think this is one that at least Chuck and I have talked about. Let me see if that make that one option. There you go. So there is a field area that is on Stroud Ave, the location of the former water treatment plant area. I think anecdotally I've heard from people that it is used as an open field for dogs to run around in. The pro for me is that it would be very the startup cost would not be big, right? It's flat, it's generally open. The con would be conservation, of course. We would have to figure out how that works conservation wise. And I have heard that there is some concern with parking in this area, right? So people parking to get access to this location would be a con as well.
That was actually the first location we ever discussed, sitting in your conference room talking about it. And my concern about using that, although I love the area and I've taken my dog there countless times, is it's remote. You cannot get there safely except by car coming, up Stroud. You have to have transportation or else you're risking your life to get there. So there's that remoteness. Now, actually, I should mention one thing. Jane Kinsella, who is our director of the DPW, told me today that we're getting, that they have put together funding to get a water source, a water station at the field there. So that's really good news for people who do use the town forest. And the next step is for them to go to Chuck Tyrone's Conservation Commission to see about approval, location and so on.
So they have approved funding, but not an approved permit from the Conservation Commission for this area that's MESA protected. So it's, it's up to the commission. I'm not gonna hazard a guess where it's gonna go.
But we've been looking at this for months now, and finally they were able to put together funding, at least, to buy the equipment, and I guess to fund the installation. So I thought I'd bring it up, mention it.
It seems like, speaking of that water area, so I'm gonna take off my conservation hat because I don't like this spot for a structure, because I think it goes against the protection that is afforded to the town forest. But I would think that water bubbler for the dogs is in the wrong spot.
Bubbler or dog park?
Well, the dog park will be on the field and the bubbler will be way over by the existing building that's there. And it seems to me they should be linked better than that. So maybe when something should slow down and people catch up with what the plan is and, hopefully this never happens here. I think the Conservation Commission will have a lot to say about that. But if it does happen here, the dogs should have their water in the dog park.
Anything else from anybody? Chuck loves this spot, as I can tell. All right.
Yeah, I have a question. This is
Yes.
Jackie McCarthy. Approximately how large is this parcel? I know you said there's plenty of room, but do you have a guesstimate of square footage?
I do not.
It's about an acre. Maybe it's much more than 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Next option that has been talked about is Leach Park. That's at Hopkins, Walnut, and Summer. I think the only pro that I've heard is that it's available. In terms of cons, a lot of cons, I'll say. It's a high traffic area. It's difficult pedestrian access, limited parking area, and there are some water infrastructure, and sewer infrastructure there. This is not, and I think Ms. Kroll and I have talked about the fact that this is not a great location either. And then Oakland Road obviously keeps coming up. It's worth spending some time on this. The site is available, obviously. We do think that there is parking generally available outside of school hours, and it's close to other recreation facilities, as in the Birch Meadow complex. The con would be that depending on where it is and where it goes, it could have a lot of site work necessary, which can be expensive. Again, depending on where it goes, and the abutters have expressed concern over traffic and also the removal of trees for any project, I'll say. I'm sure anybody has any comments on this?
Harry Berman, so are we giving up on that site as a site for housing?
I am not. No?
It's only been available since 1937, so let's not rush into it.
Anyone else? Comments, questions?
Probably the only thing that hasn't been looked at. But you could fill that without any problems. You've got tons and tons of fill up at the compost pile that can be put in there.
You heard that, Chuck? Bring it down.
Let's test it first.
Again, if you were able to get a hold of the National Guard engineers, I'm sure they could come in there very quickly and do it. They hold 4,000 yards for us, 4,000 yards for wood-in cemeteries, so they can do the work.
Chris Haley?
Yes, thanks, Phil. I guess my only comment to this, and generally with all the other ones as well, with the whole tree scenario, is generally I would agree with that, but in seeing one of his beginning slides where they use the existing terrain and whatnot, it seems like it would be limited to the amount of clearing you would have to do here or anywhere else for that matter, if you still keep the same terrain, because I've been in there before. And there's washing machines, there's crazy stuff going down there, there's cliffs, all that, but generally it was walkable for me and my daughter. So there's that.
Some level of hilliness is okay, in a dog park, some level of it. You'll see that at Gloucester. It's almost like on a slope in many areas. So it's okay, dogs love to run up and down. But Fidel has explained to me on multiple occasions how much we would have to spend to use particularly the area on the left, which I understand has considerable edge. And
Yeah, no, it is. It's very steep.
It's a sizable drop off. So.
Most of that in there is filled anyway from the original water line that went down in 1954. That's where all the ledge went. That's what's dumped in there.
Yes, please.
Lori Randall Parker. I live in that area, in the Birch Meadow area, and we've been there for over 30 years. And when we take a walk, especially in the summer, especially not this summer, but the past 2 summers, it's been horribly hot. I would be really concerned if you take tons and tons of trees from there, because it's already a heat island with all the parking, with all the roofs, with all the everything, that turf and everything. And I just think that it would be quite concerning to see every single inch of that intact forest, full of washing machines and whatever else is there, be destroyed. So that's just my
Thank you. I'll just read a quick chat from a quick comment from the chat. It says from Andy. Hi there, thank you for putting this together. I'm very excited about the possibility of this. Recently moved to Reading with my husband and our dog, and have been having a hard time meeting people. Dog parks where we lived in the past was an amazing way for us to meet new people and really feel part of the community. Thank you, Andy. All right, so Oakland Road, right? And again, just to kind of right set why we're doing this, right? So there's a deadline for potential free money for the Stan Foundation. The only requirement they have is we need to identify a location. Mr. Cool says that maybe we can identify 2, but I identifying 1 is better. So the grant must be filed by December 31st, which is the end of this year, and it's got to be town-owned property. Just going back on locations, there are a number of other areas that we have talked about. We have kind of gone through each one of them individually, and in my opinion, they are all problematic and are not necessarily the best options, in my opinion. So I just wanted to share that. You see the list here. If anyone has any questions or would like to talk about any one of them specifically, please let me know.
I'll just let you know that Castine Field is a jurisdictional wetland and it shouldn't be on this list at all.
It's on the list.
But Stroud Ave is okay.
It's one we.
Stroud, yeah, it's good. We get a parking issue at Stroud, yeah, but, I'll listen with you.
Yes.
Tara Gregory, what is the issue with Memorial Park exactly?
Read the deed.
Oh, I don't know, I'm fairly new to it.
In 1917, 2 sisters deeded the park land over to Reading. And in the conveyance, that is just a very short paragraph, they laid out what they felt or what they mandated to be the use of the park, and their prohibitions and permissions in there. And we could throw it, it's I think the last slide on our,
sure,
if you'd like to pull it up. So it's
right
very
behind you,
readable.
it's on the wall. Deed's right there.
What?
The deed for the Memorial Park is right there.
Oh, okay. But
It's in tiny print.
very tiny.
I can read it to you.
Yeah, I've probably read this 300 times. Now, Mr. Brown and I we've known each other, 40-some years probably, but we see differently. We see this differently. I read it the way I want to read it. Because I'd love to use Memorial Park, but Bill points out he does not feel that a dog park there would be consistent with what the sisters' wishes were.
Required fencing knocks it right out of the ballpark.
What? Sorry?
Required fencing puts it right out of the ballpark.
Which I've asked several people recently to please dig in and find out why we have 2 fenced tennis courts and a fenced basketball court. I'm still waiting for.
Legally, the basketball court should not be there, nor should the tennis courts be fenced. Period.
Yeah.
And the reason, you gotta go back and read the whole history from day one on Memorial Park. The reason that the fence for the tennis courts was there, because within 15 or 20 feet from the tennis courts, there was a building with the children. It was a safety issue. That's the only reason they started out with chicken wire, and it's evolved to what's there.
But if you needed a fence to have a basketball court, then according to this, you shouldn't have the basketball court.
You're not supposed to anyways, because it's related to kickball and everything else, and it's not legally supposed to be there.
But I've asked our new, very new recreation director if he could please dig into it and find out how it got approved. You know, did the select board have a hand in it? Was it just the recreation department?
This goes back to probably the late 20s. When Memorial Park was given, probably at that time, there's only probably an acre and a half that was usable. And it's evolved since to what we see today. But at that time, they had to protect the children from the tennis balls. Because there was a ban on there. And they didn't want the kids getting hurt, and that's the reason the tennis court. Believe me, I walked through that park since 1935 or 36, so I know very well.
So I know Memorial Park has come up a number of times for potential uses. And we always go back to, well, the donors, the original donors, very specific about what they wanted and they didn't want. And that was 100 years ago, and kind of things have changed. So, you know, have we, and I know town council has looked at this. Has town council looked at this and rendered an opinion specifically about the use of a dog park? If the issue, Bill, is about fencing, you know, and you know, fencing was okay for the tennis courts for safety, you're putting fencing up in the dog park ostensibly for safety. So, I just think it checks off a lot of boxes. It's centrally located. It's big. A lot of people can get there. There's parking all the way around it. It's used. People know where it is. It could be segregated from other uses without interfering with other uses. So, you know, I just would love to maybe dig in a little more and just get an opinion about, you know, from at least legally, would we have a leg to stand on? And then if not, you know, what are the consequences? Are they gonna take the land back? The family's been gone 100 years.
Sorry, there's a meeting at 7 and I think a few members of the select board will leave. I'm not sure, Jackie, how many will leave, but hopefully, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, thank you for Mr. Poole and Fidel and town staff. I don't mean to cut off the conversation, but I'll catch up with you, Fidel, after tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay.
No?
Yes.
I'll run again. I think you'd have to go back to the land court to get a good ruling. And that can take time. To get a clear ruling. I don't think our town council could do that. You'd have to take it back to the land court.
Thanks, Fidel. I think just in terms of timing, the issue ends up being the Stanton grant. If we want it for free-ish, then we're gonna make a decision by December. Do we think land court and all this stuff's gonna be hashed out by then? Probably not. But it does ring back to Memorial Park's been brought up a dozen times for a dozen items. We might as well just figure it out regardless, as long as it's not gonna cost us, money, just to see what the deal is.
Yeah, that land can be used for many different things around town. It's a huge asset. I was just wondering if that Stanton grant is available each year, or is this the last year that
This
it's
is it.
offered?
They're sunsetting the program.
They're sunsetting it?
Yes.
That's important.
They've got at least 47 grants to cities and towns here in Mass. That's it.
Susan?
Yes.
Susan Bowe again. So Simon's Way, I haven't stayed up with how that land is playing out, but then there's like 2.5 acres there, right?
There's plenty of space there, yeah.
And there's place for parking, and can we go back to that slide again and see what's the negatives about that?
Yeah, the Simon's Way Exploratory Committee had a meeting yesterday. There are a lot of different things that are being considered, I'll say. The committee has a process is my main concern. That the committee has a process, and we haven't quite ironed out the process yet. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Okay.
I guess if I could, yeah, they have to come up with they sunset December as well, same time the standing grant thing is coming to an end. So it's kind of, we're just running out of time kind of scenario. But I agree in that aspect that we don't want to start making decisions on all of this land. They brought up the pickleball thing yesterday, same deal. You don't want to give away a portion of this bottom land because you see a skate park, splash pad, all these various different things that are going to end up coming out of this potentially. But what I'm going back to, what I've liked is the Northwest thing that was mentioned. That's just me personally. It's still out of the way if it's feasible, like Chuck mentioned. If it's 200 grand worth of boardwalk and then it opens up the town to other people to walk in the forest up there, as long as people aren't hunting. I understand we don't want people getting, shot during
It's bow and arrow.
a bow and arrow, even, well, quieter, I guess, which is probably
I
worse.
still heard.
Oh, no, I was up there.
I think the walking that I meant would be kind of around that open area. I do think it becomes wet as you go in the woods a little bit, and so that would prevent you from going further. But it could be explored, and there could be more space than we think is up there. What we know is up there is what we see from the aerial photo and what we have on our own GIS map. And that's where the focus should be. And again, it's outside of that downtown area. It's kind of isolated, but no one's claimed it in its town land.
For me, once again, the way that I see it is if we have to make a decision by December on land that we are never going to use in Reading, because Simon's Way is going to be the bottom right, and maybe 30 years from now, we'll deal with something else. But the way that I see it is this other land is never being used. No one's going to complain about the dogs because they're out in the middle of nowhere along with everything else. And we're getting the money for free. Now, fast forward this to 2024, that's a completely different ballgame. We're on the hook now for this money to be able to fund something. And, that's where it gets into, bigger details where now people have to make a decision on spending the money or not and weighing the pros and cons. Currently, the pro is we get it for free and call it a day. And Simon's Way can still work on the land and everything else that they're doing. That's just me, what I see. I didn't think of this until here because I met with Stephen and Fidel before and we went all over these things. And I said, XYZ is never going to happen. We're not cutting down the town forest, like all these different scenarios. But the new Simon's Way thing and then having it open, for other people to use it for other opportunities. I mean, that's just, seems like a win-win, but if you can't use it because it's wet, then it's end of discussion. So someone's gonna go up there and find out what the deal is.
Yeah, so that gray, the dark gray and the light gray area is dry, and so is that, I'm gonna call it red or pink area, that's dry. That just depicts the 35-foot buffer zone. So this was put together for the Simon's Way Committee that needed to know the buildable area. And the buildable area within the conservation's jurisdiction would be the gray and the dark gray area. So just as you kind of walk out of the parking lot and up that black path, you'll cross that first red line and then go through a green section. That's the wetland and that's the 200-foot boardwalk section that would be needed. And, I say it real easy, it just rolls off my tongue, but when you have a consultant that's actually gonna do this job, you're really gonna know what the nuts and bolts are that you're gonna need to put together to get a access pathway out there that hits all the bells and whistles this town needs for safety and access. And it seems like you have $250,000 to make that happen and $25,000 for some exploration. So maybe that should be on the list.
Do you think it's feasible for it to be done for a yes or no by the end of the year with a consultant, whatever scenario?
Well, as I understand it, you just have to put it on the list, this spot in Memorial Park, and then if you got the grant, you can explore both of those into more depth and see which one stands.
We do have to be committed to A, these locations. So we can't say, oh, well, the ones we put in for, they didn't really work out, we'd like to substitute
Right.
an unnamed.
Yeah, I mean, this is you know, it's usually you don't have, what is that called, like your wish, your reach, your stretch school. This is something that you're hoping may happen, but I didn't see one in the list that was without some issues.
Can I just say,
Name, please.
Jeff Lanson, taking off the town forest hat, putting on the conservationalist and dog owner hat, going quick punch list here. One, I'm gonna give you the bottom line, I'm a dog owner, a paraprofessional dog trainer, I will never use a dog park, but I totally respect, I will never, ever. It's a great way to get your dog sick or hurt, it will cause incidents in towns, but I respect that other people have the right to exercise their dogs the way that they want to. I'm a libertarian in that way. It hurts my heart to think that we would cut down more trees in an area that's probably got some coyote dens in it. And if I had a nickel for every concern about coyotes in this town that I've seen. That, how are you ever gonna get water to that? Can you imagine two people approaching each other on a boardwalk with their dogs, one or two dogs on leash, and like falling off the boardwalk and trying to navigate that? Did you make a like, it's gonna cost a couple $100,000 maybe to build a boardwalk out there of that length?
In the ongoing maintenance.
Versus, I really like your Oakland Road option, honestly. I don't think you're gonna do the ledge part unless you want to town goat park, because goats below the ledge, right? But that like more northeastern part of it, right? It's already full of trash. When I saw your drone videos about it, my amateur read, knowing just enough to be dangerous, it's already full of a lot of invasive trees that should probably be managed anyway, like Norway maples and other, what I would call trash trees. You could clean it up anyway, get all the washing machines out of there. You could probably get water to it. And you can have a dog park that doesn't take down every tree. You can still have plenty of shade, right? You can still have trees, like Andover's dog park is covered with trees, right? And they just kind of like the parking area at Matera. You have canopy, you have natural graded land. I think that's an absolute solution for it. I would totally explore that.
And if you build something on it, put a green roof on
Yeah.
the
And you
roof
guys are
of
gonna
whatever you
have
build.
3-story, housing.
Yeah, Lori Van Parker again. I mean, it's called Oakland Road, right? I mean, I'd love to see some of those gorgeous, huge, tall oaks left. And there are some, as well as the trash trees. And I know what you feel about Norway maples. I feel the same way. But I am also wondering, in terms of climate resiliency, with all these options, if we get a huge 7-inch, which is a rain flood in 2 days, which one of these would be the most likely to not withstand that? Of the 4 options.
I don't think we've done that analysis yet.
Okay.
I couldn't answer that question yet.
Well,
Yes, sir.
what's
What's your
the
name?
process of deciding whether we're gonna have a dog park or not? This roundabout conversation of sites and things. We've not decided we want a dog park, I don't believe.
Right.
We have a proposal to think about a dog park.
Right.
So what's the process? Does it ultimately go to the select board? Does it ultimately go to the town manager? I mean, there's a cost involved, there's a budget implication here, I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah, the select board had a meeting, I want to say in May or June, where we talked about this, right? And the emphasis, is this grant, right? That the grant, are we going to act on the grant, right? If the decision is we're not going to act on the grant, then obviously the urgency goes away, right? If we do want to apply for this grant, the requirement is a location, right? They're tied together. The select board recommended having this forum as a way to garner support and garner opinions, I believe, and I know there are a few select board members on the call as well. But my understanding is that was the intent of this to garner. One, is this something the community wants, and then 2 is there overwhelming support on any one of these locations, and it is up to the select board to decide this. I guess I'll say it depends on the location, who has jurisdiction, right? Like if it's conservation land, it's up to the Conservation Commission, right?
So there's no vote per se to have a dog park or not have a dog park, it's just select board's listening to all our input and deciding.
There's no vote
to
tonight.
proceed or not.
Chris Haley will not be voting tonight.
Okay.
I gave my opinion. I will say real
We need it.
quick to your point is it's all these open questions and open unknowns and getting the public's, I understand this is the first step. Just me thinking and seeing the way that things work and timetables, we don't have enough time. That's why I'm looking for the least problematic, least argumentative kind of spot. And if it's out there in Simon's Way in the Northwest, then it is. Memorial Park, I never see it happening because that's just, I'm thinking of, we get 250,000 plus 25, we just have to pick a spot. And the least controversial, I would like to think, is up there, but in the end, it might be nothing, and then we have to pay for it, or we don't.
It's the least controversial because there's nobody
that's
out there in the middle of nowhere.
That's what I'm saying.
I think Mark wants to get in.
Hi there, folks. So Mark Doxey here from another member of the Select Board. So first, thanks. The goal was, in fact, kind of, Tim, your question, and Fidel, your answer, and Chris, your answer. This was meant to be a forum to start getting some input. We do first need to decide whether or not we're interested in pursuing a dog park. I think we probably believe that having a substantial amount of money available to do it, as in the Stanton Foundation grant, is probably the catalyst that would make it move ahead. I think without that, I don't think it's going to be on the top of the list. There's a lot of other stuff that are priorities in town that are going on. I don't know that the dog park is going to make it by itself. It wasn't even on the list at all until Steve Cool, brought it forward. So I think we need to kind of think of it that way. I think it'd be great to get more input in terms of what people are thinking. Great to hear the concerns. If the answer is that we do need to get the Stanton Foundation grant, I think to Chris's point, it's got to be kind of is there an easier one that's out there? It may be that Stroud Ave is the answer to that, or maybe there's another as well. But from what's been discussed in terms of what does the town own, what's their areas where there's, doesn't require other things to happen, that may be the one that's there. I think that Simon's Way has a lot of associated issues. And we established a process, and the SWEC is the starting piece of that process to decide what are the best uses for that land. To suddenly carve out some space for X or Y or Z may limit that and may kind of take it off the table of kind of having a decision by December. So, I think we need to be careful of that. But I think we still need to get some more input on kind of, what's going on, what's realistic. Do we want a dog park? Yes or no, if it can be largely paid for. And if the answer is yes, find those quick solutions that would get us in there. I think I just saw something come through the chat. I think Memorial Park is not something that gets resolved in a couple of months. I think that's a much bigger issue for us to be thinking about. And truthfully, I think you'll have a lot of competing interests that want to have input into that. So again, I think that's a big discussion, not a small one. I was kind of hoping there might be a couple of easy spots. And again, maybe it's Stroud Ave, maybe it's not. Maybe there's another one like that. Oakland Road, does seem interesting, but it does require kind of changing what's going on there too. So anyway, that's just my input.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Susan.
I don't think that Stroud Ave should be even considered. It's surrounded by wetlands. It's a NESCO site. There's no place to park. You would have to park somewhere and then walk in, because there's all these blue-spotted salamanders and snakes and frogs, and all the cars would be running all over those, and that's not okay. So in my opinion, I am an environmentalist. I care about the environment. I always will. And I don't think that Stroud Ave should be developed in any way, shape, or form. That area that used to be the water treatment.
Yeah, it's certainly what they
Mr. Bill?
said when they tried to install the new water treatment
Yeah.
plant. They said, no,
No.
and you can't do any work.
If they're gonna have the vote Wednesday, I'd go comment. Oakland Road.
Oakland Road.
Get all the wash machines, all the other junk out there. Accumulating.
I like the Oakland Road location from pretty much the beginning, although it has its problems. It's kind of remote from town center, from the population center, but it's a focal point of town. You've got the high school, and you've got Birch Meadow, and you've got the various game fields there and all. So it's sort of a nice logical place. It isn't as close to the center as I think is ideal. But it's the kind of area where there are lots of people around. It's not a remote area like the northwest area by Simons, where if you were there with your dog and you're alone and it gets to be dusk, do you really want to be there? Especially, if you're young, if a woman, do you really want to be alone there? So I think that's a key consideration as well. So,
It is the geographical center of Reading.
Sir?
Oakland Road is just close to the geographical center of Reading. And the reason that site was selected in 1954, because it was within walking distance of everybody in the town of Reading at that time.
But it is close to the geographical center, but not the population center as it has become.
Who walks anyways?
I do. I walk like 10 miles a week.
That's
Yeah.
how it's going.
My dog around a lot.
Biking and walking. I had a question. I saw that Hunt Park was on the list. So I sent you a aerial photo of Hunt Park, which yielded like 15,000 square feet. Why isn't that being considered?
It's so new. You emailed me yesterday, and it's a good thing to add. I haven't had a chance to consider it. I'd like to go over there and have a look. And if there's something you think, in addition, I should know about it, maybe the two of us should head over there.
It's generally outside the wetland area. There's no trees. It was considered for the community garden. So I know big projects have looked at this area before. They haven't chose it. I think that was the community garden's first hope to be there, but I don't know why it didn't happen.
What area is it in town?
It's off
By Hunt Baseball Field, it's down on
Pleasant Street, sure.
Pleasant Street.
On Pleasant Street.
So would that remove, pardon me, Susan Bowe, would that remove the ability to have the baseball field as well,
No, it
or be
seems
in
to-
addition to?
No, so there's the Hunt Baseball Field. There's a space in between that is it's almost completely flat, nothing's there, and then there's the kids'
Tot lot.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right there, that's fenced in.
This is what it looks like.
Yep, oh, I'm,
It's got Dodge home run balls though.
That's what I was thinking about, you gotta put
It's,
something
and
on that
it's,
street.
it's the biggest open space close to the center of that population area.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the alternative Memorial Park.
Well, when Matt Dean is back next week, he suggested that we sit down and look at this list of 97 locations that, at least superficially, looked reasonable. So, maybe you and I and Matt should take a look, consider Hunt Park.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one downside that I see on Hunt Park is that, this is what I threw together quickly.
Yeah.
The wetlands are deeper into those woods than just the tree line. And it seems to be outside of the ball field. And I don't know what this area is used for, and I wish that Jim Sullivan was here, but he didn't make this meeting tonight. But that's 15,000 square feet right there. And so we were at Castine Field, we're trying to figure out what 20,000 square feet looks like. I don't think there's gonna be a big difference between 15 and 20. I mean, 20 seems to be really big, and 15 may be still workable.
I haven't been to a park that I'd say was 15, or, I don't remember being there. But I know Wakefield at 10,000 is problematic from the user's standpoint, the dog's standpoint. 20,000, Wilmington works pretty well. So, we can easily take a look, and maybe we don't need a very big small dog area, leaving a little more space for the large dogs.
I think 15,000 square feet for free is better than no square feet.
Yes, it is.
So,
That's a good point.
and just on Oakland Road, I don't see Oakland Road being resolved by the end of the year. That is just my personal opinion. Even though it might be the better location and everything else everyone mentioned, that is a hot button area that I think is going to yield more forums regarding it before it would ever be explored, so. And then if we only get 250,000, is it 500,000 to do what we need? Because then we're on the hook for the other 500,000.
Right.
So, I mean, you gotta be realistic with how much money you're gonna spend. Yes, it's 250 for free, but it's $2 million to do whatever over there. It's never happening.
A number of people have.
I'm sorry, hold on, it's cool. Did you want to say something?
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Sorry, that's okay. I'm short. Lori Van Parker, I'm just wondering, it's just 5 months until that is due. Do you have a tentative timeline for when you're gonna decide on 1 or 2 places and when you're gonna do X, Y, Z? Or by what point would you say we can't even do this if you haven't done a certain thing?
I think we're getting close.
Yeah.
I think we're getting close. Karen had her hand up. Ms. Herrick, I don't know if you had said something?
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for participating. Great points. I'm going to agree with my colleague Chris Haley that I would put Oakland Road at the bottom of the list. And I just wanted to thank Chuck for all the work you've done and looking at the back 40, so to speak, of the Simons Way area. And also, this is the first I've heard of a Hunt Park possibility. So thanks so much for bringing this to table and working late tonight with everybody else. Thank you.
And on the chat, Nora asked, what does a dog park require besides fencing? I think fencing is the start point, but maybe Mr. Cole, I know we have a slide on that, but I don't know if you wanted to quickly answer that.
The gates, the appropriate surface suitable for dogs to run and play on and not injure themselves on, benches, protection for the trees that might be there. That's kind of the minimum. You go beyond that, and maybe you have some low fencing so that people can stand behind it in the dog park and not have dogs running around them. Maybe some seating outside the dog park. Older people or someone brings their kids and they're too young to commit to the dog park, they can sit outside. A pavilion, perhaps, like Bill Ricca has, so you have shade and protection from the weather. So these are some of the additional items.
Yeah, fencing is definitely the bare minimum.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fencing in the surface that you want to bring in. And then I think my next level would be play structures for the dogs, like 1 or 2 of those. I think that Hunt Park has benches, like for the tot spot and all that. And that brings me to my next question. So you checked out a lot of dog parks around. Were any of them next to playgrounds, or was it always off in the distance? Because I think we'll get a question about how well those two interact.
Going through right now. Well, at Gloucester, there's a playground about 100 feet away. So it's not right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I can't think of any.
And this field is used by Little League. I don't know how often the balls go past the.
Oh, the dogs would love that.
It's only 180
Can you show me
feet.
some?
You would need privacy screening on both sides of that so the dogs aren't barking at the kids.
Some of these dog parks are like Disneyland.
Yeah.
You know, all sorts of rides and balls swinging around, tetherball chicken. There's a lot of games, if you will, that are
It's a
played.
good point. Dogs would be distracted and barking at kids, quite possibly.
You could just choose the right fencing and you'll be fine.
Wow. But on the other hand, if you're going to the game to watch your kids, you can bring the dog. If you're going to the tot stop with your kids, you can bring the dog. It's just added an element to this park to make it more usable. You can. Well, obviously I had a few kids when I was younger, and the dog came with us everywhere, and we did all the soccer and all the towns and all that. So,
Susan Bowe again. So are you required to be inside the fence with your dog, or
Most
do
parks
they-
say yes, don't
I would hope so.
don't leave your dog alone.
No.
Unsupervised.
Okay, that's good.
Someone said on the chat that Cambridge Alewife Dog Park is next to multiple sporting fields and it works fine. So I'm optimistically sensing some coalescing around Hunt Park. I don't know if that's true or not, or.
No problem.
I vote yes for Hunt Park.
What did you say, Mr. Brown?
No problem.
No problem.
I retract my.
Got an answer, all right.
Just come out first.
We're filing the application tomorrow.
Good job, Chuck.
Nancy Doctor asked how long is baseball played? I'm not sure about that question.
I will say, Tara Gregory, I tend to take my dog down to Hunt Field just to play fetch in the outfield in the off season. I would say they probably start baseball in late April and end early November.
Yeah, they have fall leagues,
Yeah.
but that's only on the weekends most of the day.
So no, baseball practices also happen on that field. So.
Yeah, and you know, just like any other thing, we would get a better feedback, and obviously, Little League would need to chime in as well.
I think it's worthwhile to say that if Chuck is free, that he and I can go take a look at Hunt Park. And I don't think it was noted, but for anyone who isn't familiar with Chuck, he is our conservation administrator, so that's why so much of what we talk about revolves around him.
If you want a fence built, he's the best guy in town.
Okay.
Well, look at the territory.
Terrific fence. He'll build your fence. That's straight. That's unbelievable.
I think you better check and see if 184 and 194 Pleasant are dog owners. And see how they obviously.
I've actually done that for some of the properties, like when we were considering Memorial Park, I was looking to see who owns dogs.
Hopefully both of them do, because it's right across the street. But Chuck, if I could ask real quick, so the non-shaded areas, wetlands or something you said, or someone isn't here who can tell us?
No, so you could just get out of the aerial and show the wetland. I don't know if this is it is my what I put together. So I didn't show the wetlands, but they're lower down in the forested area. So you can see a black line running across, that's a stream. And then above that, maybe to the blue line, maybe a little bit further, can't really see the green shading, is where the wetlands is. So you wouldn't be in the wetland, you may be in the 100-foot jurisdiction at the tree row where the trees end just before the field starts. So maybe some conservation jurisdiction there, but the outer 100 on a field that's already established, it's not much of a change.
Thanks. You want me to adjourn the select board?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion, now it's not discussionable, debatable. Roll call, Chris Haley, yes.
Ice rinks down at Memorial Park.
Karen, yes.
Mark Doctor, yes, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Karen.
Are we done?
I don't know.
Everybody's
That Mark, I cleaned the room out.
How did it happen that a select board meeting was convened at the same time?
It's just, it wasn't a meeting, we were posted just in case multiple members attended, so we'd have a quorum and then I can't, or anybody else can't discuss it. So that's why it was posted. We were posted yesterday too.
Our daughter pitched there.
Kids play in that playground.
All right, I guess we're done. Thank you.
We'll see where it ends up.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining.
What do you think about
I'm one of the
15,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think when you start factoring
Another one would never.
that